Listen closely, because this is not a story that begins with laughter or drums. It begins with a question. Have you ever been loved so deeply that you never noticed, until it was almost too late? In the ancient village of Umuoku, where red earth kissed bare feet and moonlight carried secrets from one compound to another, there lived a young man whose name was Obina. Obina was tall and lean, dark-skinned with calm eyes that looked like they had seen many thoughts but spoken few. He was known in the village as hardworking, respectful, and quiet, too quiet for his own good. People said his silence was pride, but the elders knew it was pain shaped into patience. Every morning before the cock crowed twice, Obina would rise from his small mud house at the edge of the village. He wore the same simple wrapper, tied neatly at the waist, and carried his hoe across his shoulder. His hands were rough from farming, yet gentle when he greeted elders. He had no wife, no children, and no loud laughter following him around. What followed him instead was a presence no one ever talked about. Her name was Amara. Amara was not his wife. She was not his blood sister. She was not promised to him by family or tradition. Yet from the day Obina's parents died during the great fever that swept Umuoku years ago, Amara had been there. Amara was a young woman with soft brown skin, full lips that rarely smiled for herself, and eyes that always seemed to be searching for someone else's needs before her own. Her hair was always neatly braided and wrapped in a faded scarf. She lived in the same compound as Obina, in a smaller hut behind his own. The villagers called her the helper, the poor girl, the orphan that stayed back. But they never called her what she truly was. Amara cooked Obina's meals before he returned from the farm. She washed his clothes in the stream until her fingers wrinkled. She fetched water, swept the compound, tended the small vegetable garden, and sat quietly when he spoke. When he was sick, she stayed awake all night, pressing cool cloths to his forehead. When he returned tired, she warmed his bath water without being asked. And yet, Obina never saw her. Not truly. To him, Amara was simply there. Like the air. Like the ground beneath his feet. Necessary, but unnoticed. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon and the village prepared for nightfall, a rumor spread like wildfire through Umuoku. A woman was coming. Her name was Nkiru, daughter of a wealthy palm wine merchant from a neighboring town. She was said to be beautiful beyond measure. Light-skinned, tall, with laughter that turned heads and eyes that promised pleasure. More importantly, she came with bride price heavy enough to make any man respected among his peers. Obina heard the news from his friend Chike, a broad-shouldered hunter with a booming voice and careless confidence. Obina! Chike shouted, slapping his back. This is your time. A woman of value is coming. No more living like a monk. You must marry. Obina smiled faintly, unsure why his chest felt tight. That night, Amara served his meal as usual, pounded yam and egusi soup, steaming and rich. She knelt as she placed it before him, her eyes lowered. You heard about Nkiru, Obina said casually, breaking the silence. Amara paused for a fraction of a second. Just a fraction. Then she nodded. Yes, she said softly. The whole village has heard. They say she is beautiful, Obina continued. And her family is rich. Yes, Amara replied, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the bow. Obina did not notice. In Amara's chest, something cracked. Because for years, she had loved this man in silence. Not the loud, demanding love song in festivals, but the quiet love that wakes before dawn and sleeps after everyone else. The love that sacrifices, that serves, that stays even when unnoticed. She had loved him when he was poor. She had loved him when he was broken. She had loved him when no one else cared. And now, another woman would harvest what she had planted. And yet, Obina never saw her. Not truly. The day Nkiru arrived, Umuoku stood still. Drums beat. Children ran. Women gathered to inspect her wrapper, her beads, her smooth skin untouched by hardship. Nkiru walked like someone who knew the world would make space for her. Her smile was sharp, confident, practiced. Obinna watched her from a distance, feeling something stir: excitement, curiosity, pride. This woman chose to come for him. Amora stood behind the crowd, half hidden, her heart heavy like a stone in water. Nkiru noticed Obinna immediately. "So this is the man," she said, her voice sweet. "He is quiet." "Quiet men," she added with a smile, "are easy to shape." Days turned into weeks. Nkiru visited often. She laughed loudly, demanded attention, and spoke of how things should be done. Obinna, flattered and blinded, found himself changing, spending less time at home, less time noticing the small things. Amora noticed everything. She noticed when Obinna stopped eating her food with joy. She noticed when he no longer asked about her day. She noticed when her presence began to feel like an inconvenience. One night, after Nkiru left in anger because Obinna had no yams to give her family that week, Amora finally spoke. "Obinna," she said quietly as she poured water into his cup, "are you happy?" He frowned. "Why do you ask?" "You have changed," she replied. He sighed. "Amora, you worry too much. This is how life is. I need a wife. A future." Amora nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "A future." That night, she cried silently, biting her wrapper to keep from making a sound. Not long after, strange things began to happen. Obinna's farm stopped yielding well. His yams rotted in the ground. His goats fell sick. The villagers whispered of bad luck. Nkiru complained endlessly. "This place is too small," she said. "Your life is too hard. Are you sure you are the man they described?" Obinna grew frustrated, angry, confused. One evening, after a heated argument, Nkiru stormed off, vowing never to return unless Obinna proved himself worthy. That same night, Amora did not prepare dinner. Obinna waited. And waited. Finally, he walked to her hut. It was empty. Her wrapper lay neatly folded on the mat. Her few belongings were gone. Only one thing remained, a small calabash, placed carefully at the doorway. Inside it was a note, written in shaky letters. "I loved you in silence. I served you without name. I stayed when it was hard. Now I live before my love turns to pain. May the eyes that never saw me finally open." Amora was gone. Days passed. Then weeks. Obinna's world collapsed. No food appeared at night. His clothes piled up dirty. The compound grew wild. Loneliness sat beside him like an unwanted guest. For the first time, he felt the weight of her absence. He remembered her hands, her patience, her quiet strength. And suddenly, painfully, he saw. The love he chased was loud and demanding. The love he lost was quiet and true. Desperate, Obinna sought the village elder, Papa Nwai, a bent old man with eyes like fireflies, small, but full of wisdom. "You had unseen love," Papa Nwai said after listening. "An unseen love, when ignored, walks away quietly. But not all paths close forever." "What must I do?" Obinna begged. "Find her," the elder said. "Not with words. With truth." Obinna searched neighboring villages. He asked traders, travelers, farmers. At last, near the river town of Ogwagu, he found her. Amora was thinner, but her eyes were clearer. She was teaching orphan children, her voice gentle, her smile real. When she saw Obinna, she froze. "I was blind," he said, kneeling before her. "But now I see." She said nothing. "I don't deserve you," he continued. "But if unseen love can forgive, then stay." Amora's tears fell freely. "I didn't want to be chosen because there was no one else," she said. "I wanted to be seen." Obinna lifted his head. "I see you," he said. Finally, love returned, not loudly, not in celebration, but in truth. And this time, it was seen. So listen well. Sometimes the greatest love in your life is not the one shouting for attention, but the one quietly holding you together. Do not wait until silence becomes absence. Because unseen love does not beg.